Have you ever thought of buying a franchise or currently own one or many? If so, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria, the podcast created and hosted by franchise attorney Josh Brown for the sole purpose of helping people find success through franchising.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria, the podcast to help people succeed in franchising. Today, I'm thrilled to have on the show Josh Bauerle. Josh is a CPA, and his firm, JDB Business Solutions, specializes in working with entrepreneurs and small businesses to minimize their exposure to taxes while keeping them in line with the ever-changing tax laws. Well, I'm just thrilled to have you on, Josh, as your area expertise is a necessity for all small businesses, including franchise owners and franchise buyers. To begin, I'd like you to share a little about your background, about yourself, and talk about your experiences in helping small business owners.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here. Big fan of the show. To give you a little bit of background on me, I've been in the accounting industry for about 8 years now. I started out as a staff accountant at a Fortune 500 company in Ohio. It was incredibly boring. I hated every minute of it. So we decided to try something new, moved out to Denver, Colorado, and I became a tax accountant at a local CPA firm. And I obtained my CPA license and started really working with small businesses and really enjoyed that aspect of it, but still wasn't quite happy where I was at. So I decided to try something new again, went into financial advising. And I was doing a lot of tax planning and financial planning for wealthy individuals. And again, it was okay, but still felt like something was missing. And I finally started to think about it and realized that the problem wasn't really the work I was doing. It was that I hated being an employee. So I hated working for someone. I hated them telling me when I had to be there and when I could leave and how I had to do my job. So in December of 2012, I decided to start my own tax firm, JDB Business Solutions. And I decided to really focus it around entrepreneurs, small business owners, especially people who are new to owning their business. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. They need a lot of help in this area. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. And I've loved every minute of it and really finally feel like at almost 30 years old, I found what I want to be when I grow up.
Well, that's great, Josh. And I feel like you're sort of telling my story as well. I sort of did the same thing. I worked at various law firms, and I kept wondering why, things are going well, everything's going great, and I'm just miserable. And it took me, 2-3 different stints to finally realize the reason I'm miserable is because I'm the employee. I'm not the one making the decisions. And with my personality, and it sounds like you're the same, and there's a lot of people out there listening who are probably in the same situation. It was just having the ability to be able to say, you want to try something and not have to go get approval.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So was that really what drove you then to want to work with your business with small business owners?
Yeah, so one of the big things was when I was at the CPA firm, one thing I really noticed with small businesses, that they were kind of stuck. I mean, they'd come to our CPA firm, and it's really expensive to go to a CPA firm and get your taxes done. I mean, they're paying $1,200 just to get their taxes done. And for a small business, that's a lot of money. And if they wanted additional help on top of that, they'd have to pay the partner's rate of $250 an hour to get planning or consulting or strategy. So basically, all they could afford to do was come to us at the end of the year with their taxes. And at that point, I mean, there's not much you can do for them, right? It is what it is. I mean, there's a few things, but really there's not much planning involved. So they're kind of stuck with either paying this huge rate for a CPA firm and not getting much additional help, or going the cheap route and paying for a less qualified person, which again isn't going to give you much help. So I kind of wanted to start my business to be somewhere in between, to give them the qualified help they need at an affordable rate and give them help throughout the year instead of just at tax time. And I've really enjoyed doing that.
Well, that's great. I mean, as you know, this show is geared completely to helping people find success in franchising, find that success when they go out on their own and try to realize their dreams of buying their business and building their future. And, for those out there listening and considering a franchise purchase, when would you say is the right time to hire an accountant?
Ideally yesterday. It's extremely important. I think the two biggest things you can do when you're considering opening any business, but especially a franchise where you're going to put a lot of money down up front, right? Or put a lot of your personal money into it, is to get that expert opinion up front, a CPA and an attorney. They can help you so much. Just looking at the financials, they can tell you what you can expect profitability wise, and they can help you avoid critical mistakes. They're going to cost you a ton of money. So I think getting that relationship with a qualified CPA and a qualified attorney right up front is huge for any business owner, but especially a potential franchise owner.
Well, you raise an incredibly good point. And, when I work with franchise prospects, I tell them that's the first people outside of, an attorney that they need to consider as an accountant. And it's not just obviously for their books because they haven't purchased a franchise at this point, but it's to review the franchisor's numbers, to review their books. In the franchise disclosure document, there are indications of, the profitability and what kind of money has been generated by the franchise. It's always a wise decision to have an accountant, a certified CPA for that matter, go in there and take a look. So I'm really, really glad that you mentioned that, because that's literally what I tell everybody before I meet with them.
Yeah, if you think about it, their job is to sell you the franchise, right? So you need someone on your team that's just on your side and can look at it objectively. Of course, they're going to tell you it's a great opportunity. It doesn't mean it's not a great opportunity, but you want someone that's not involved, that doesn't benefit from you buying, giving you that advice, right?
Yeah, really the only people who are objective, truly objective throughout the franchise buying process is going to be your attorney, and it's going to be your accountant. Consultants are fantastic and they serve a great position for what they do, but they're certainly incentivized by the deal going through. Same with other people who you work with. But, the job of an accountant, an attorney, is to make sure that what you're buying is what they say you're buying, and that you're making a wise investment. So, once we get, once a small business owner opens up his or her doors, okay, this is a really, really tricky thing because, as a small business owner myself, I can resonate with when you start a business, and you yourself, Josh, you started your own business. So, things are hectic. Things come fast. Things that maybe you anticipate, maybe you didn't anticipate. And, accounting is not the most exciting thing in the world. So it's one of those things that tends to be put on the back burner. People say, oh, I just can't get to it today. I'll get to it another day. It's the whole shoebox thing. Let's throw everything into a shoebox and have the accountant deal with it later. In your perfect world, if you could set the stage, how many times and at what point would you say to a small business owner, if you haven't already secured your accountant, now's a good time to do it?
Yeah, before I even started a business, I'd secure the accountant. I'd figure out who I wanted to work with and get some initial upfront advice on that. After that, ideally I'd be looking at someone quarterly. It's completely dependent on your business, really. But ideally quarterly. Some businesses may need it monthly. Some may need it twice a year. So it kind of depends on your business. But you don't want to be someone that's just coming in at tax time with, like you said, a shoebox full of receipts and dumping it out, because at that point, there's nothing we can do for you. You need to have a strategy, create a strategy with your CPA and kind of follow up with them. I think quarterly is a great goal to shoot for if you can afford it, if you have a CPA that's going to work with you on that, and go from there. If you need it more, then go ahead, and if it ends up you need it less, then that's great. But I would shoot for quarterly really with that. Well,
and let me touch on something you said where you said, if you wait, we really can't do anything for you. My assumption is there's probably a lot you can do. It's just going to be really, really expensive. But what's going to happen is you're going to end up losing the opportunity to probably take advantage of some of the tax advantages that you could have taken advantages of otherwise.
Exactly. So the scenario when people come into my office with a box of receipts, I'm going to spend most of their time just organizing those, trying to get it in the best shape I can. And we're not going to have the time or the ability to go back and say, hey, this is a deduction we can take. This is something we can do strategy-wise. You want to get that planned ahead of time and get those in place. Once you come tax time, usually it is what it is. There's a few minor things we can do here and there, but we can't retroactively go back and say, hey, you should have done this, so let's do it. You know what I mean?
Well, what about the expense? I know every case is different, but what about the expense that somebody might throw up and say, well, gosh, with all the other things that go into starting a business, it's just too expensive to go to an accountant, quarterly. I certainly hear that from the legal perspective, but I'm curious how you counter that.
Yeah, and it is a big expense. That's part of the problem. Ideally, you find someone that you can work with that's going to give you an affordable package where they'll include some kind of quarterly or monthly thing for you. But either way, you're typically going to get your money back and a lot more when you work with a qualified CPA. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people who, when they started their business, they didn't want to pay for that help. And then they come to me 2 years later and they have this notice from the IRS saying, hey, you did your taxes wrong. You owe $15,000. At that point, they're going to have to pay me to fix it. Plus, they're going to have to pay all the interest and penalties that they did wrong. It's just, you're going to save money if you get a qualified person up front, even after paying their expense. You're going to either save money by getting more deductions that you didn't know you could take, or by avoiding mistakes for taking deductions you couldn't take, right? Because the IRS doesn't like when you take deductions you couldn't take.
That's absolutely right. I mean, so outside of somebody just not going to accountant at all, which obviously is a big mistake, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see small business owners consistently make when it comes to actual accounting or trying to keep track of their books?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I see, the biggest mistake with small businesses is they're not organized enough. They, like we've talked about, come in with a shoebox full of receipts at the end of the year. You need to be monitoring your income and expenses at least monthly, if not weekly. You need to have the organization and discipline to sit there and come up with some kind of system, whether it's just an Excel spreadsheet or getting something like QuickBooks. You've got to do that. And if you're not capable of doing that, it's not fun. And a lot of people aren't good at that and shouldn't do it themselves. You need to hire a bookkeeper. And it's really not as expensive as it sounds. And it's going to save you so much in the long run. As a business owner, you need to be able to sit there and say, on July 7th, what have I done year to date? I can't tell you the number of people who come in year end and have no clue whether their business even made money or not that year because they're just not tracking it. So the biggest thing to me is you've got to be organized. And if you can't do it yourself, you got to hire someone to help you with that.
I mean, do you think in certain instances it's warranted that even if, with all the online services out there, and the most known one would be QuickBooks online.
Yep.
I've noticed with QuickBooks, and I've actually switched over to FreshBooks. I kind of use both of them right now, but I find FreshBooks to be a lot easier. QuickBooks, I mean, it's still confusing. I mean, there's still a lot of confusion out there about how do you categorize expenses?
Yep.
How should things be charted and factored in? How do you account for that?
Yeah, so that's the thing. You either need to take the time to learn to do that yourself, and a lot of CPAs will do some kind of I know one CPA who offers a $200. He'll give you 3 hours of training on QuickBooks for $200. So you can find someone like that and learn to do it yourself, which is great if you can. And if not, there are bookkeepers who will do it for, you can find them as low as $100 a month. I've seen them as low as $50 a month. So you got to just decide whether it's worth it for you to either learn how to do it yourself or pay someone to do it. But it's something that's just got to get done. It's going to save you so much in every respect.
No, I think that's a great point, and it's something that I often speak to small business owners about because, naturally when they're talking to an attorney or vice versa, when they're talking to an accountant, they will bounce suggestions that regard other parts of their business. And, there are a lot of complex things, obviously, when it comes to accounting that's not just about, hey, we can just go get one of these software services and plug it on in. You actually have to know how to use the software. So great points there. I mean, I'm curious, one of the things that I focus in on in the work that I do, and that a lot of people who are listening are probably wondering about, is that, when you're looking to buy a business, when you're looking to buy a franchise, there's a whole lot of due diligence that goes into it. Yep. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they don't have enough capital or access to capital when they're starting their business. And I've heard different numbers on this. I mean, I generally tell people, depending on the business, you need 6 to 9 months worth of capital or access to capital, assuming that nothing is coming in, to give your business an opportunity to breathe as you're starting, and to put yourself in a position that if there is a cash crunch, you have someplace to go. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say both yes and no to that. I think ideally that you want to have that 6 to 9, maybe even 12 months of capital behind you when you get started. It's going to ease the business process so much for you. You can focus on your business. You're not worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage next month and how you're going to put food on the table. And it's just such a huge relief for both you and your family. On the other hand, I would say that sometimes life throws opportunities at us and you have to take them whether you're necessarily financially prepared or not. I know when I went to start my business, I didn't even have 3 months of capital ready for it, but an opportunity came up where an older guy wanted me to take over his client base, and I didn't know if that opportunity would ever come back again. So I took it. And yeah, it was really stressful, especially for my wife sometimes, thinking, what are we going to do next month if this doesn't come in? But it worked out. And if I wouldn't have taken that opportunity, if I would have waited till I had that 6 to 9 months, that may not have come up again. So it kind of depends on your situation. I think if you're in the process of thinking about owning a business, start saving now. The more you can save, the better. But if an unexpected opportunity comes up and you really think this is a great opportunity, there's sometimes where you just got to go for it, whether you're prepared or not.
No, I think that's a really, really good point. I'm really glad you mentioned that because, every situation is different. And it sounds like in your situation, somebody came to you with an existing client base and there's an opportunity there where you say, wow, how often is that going to happen?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I think for people out there listening, it's really important that obviously you need to take heed of your particular situation. I mean, there's not an exact right or wrong answer. Obviously, in a perfect world, you want to have capital saved up so that if you come into a crisis, you have it. But we're trying to deal in reality too. And the reality is people just aren't in that position a lot.
Yep.
And so that's, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And it sounds like it was a fantastic opportunity for you. I've gotten to know you a little bit, Josh, off of the recording. And, I'm really kind of excited about a lot of the things that you're trying to do in the accounting field because you're utilizing technology, you're utilizing your skills to help a lot of people. And I'd love for you to talk about some of the specific services or package services that you have that can help small business owners.
Yeah, so one of the things we're really excited about right now, we just called our Entrepreneur Deluxe Tax Package. And it's for people like we talked about earlier who want that monthly or quarterly help, but really can't afford to pay an hourly rate for it. So what we do, we'll sit you down or do it over Skype or whatever, and we'll talk about first what business entity is best for you if you haven't done that yet. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that, as you well know. A lot of people get advice from their cousin who owned a business and tell them that, hey, if you open a C-Corp, you won't pay any taxes, and you get this $10,000 business that's a C-Corp, right? Like, what are you doing? So that's the first thing. We'll sit down and discuss what's best for them there. And then the next thing we're going to do, if it applies to them, we're going to look at their previous year tax returns, because a lot of people, new businesses, will try to do it themselves those first 2 years because they'll think there's not too much complicated about it. And we found countless times where we can either get them significant money back that they didn't know they could get, or we'll correct a mistake before the IRS finds it and charges them penalties and interest. So that's the next thing we'll do, look at their previous year tax returns. And then we're going to prepare their current year tax return, so 2013 in this case. We're going to prepare both their business and personal tax return. And then finally, we're going to give them 30 minutes of consulting per month for the entire year. So 12 months, 30 minutes a month. And that's going to be in there to implement their tax strategy, to talk about their bookkeeping, to keep them on the right track for the entire year. So they're not just coming at the end of the year hoping and praying for the best. We're going to get them on the right track, get that strategy in place. And we offer all those things right now for $995. In the CPA industry, it's a really good rate. It's hard to get someone that's not going to charge you hourly. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to get this so small businesses, new businesses specifically, could afford this. With that one, is obviously a limited amount we could do because we only have so many consulting hours per month. So we are limiting that to 50 this year.
What happens if somebody off of that? Because that sounds like a great package, by the way. I'm trying to do some similar types of things with my business because obviously, people just do not like paying hourly rates and we can't blame them. And so there's a lot of value in what you're providing. But what sort of business are you targeting with that? Is there a particular kind of small business or, a service-based, a business-to-business, business-to-consumer, or does it matter?
Mostly it is service-based. We do have a few product people on there, but in those cases, you may want someone local just because there's a lot more involved with product-based businesses. But service businesses especially, I think you can get a CPA from anywhere. You can do it over Skype, you can do it over email, you can do it over the phone. So that's mainly who we're targeting. And also smaller businesses. Typically, most of our clients are at about $200,000 in gross revenue or less. We do have some bigger ones. We have one at about $1 million. So we can do it all over the place. But specifically who we're targeting is service-based businesses who are either new or at that $200,000 or less per year level.
Well, see, I love that because that is so many businesses out there meet that qualification, yet it's a niche. I mean, it's a niche. It's really, really challenging for businesses at that level to afford the higher end accounting services, just like it is for the higher end legal services.
Yep.
So what happens if they need a little bit more consulting? How do you address that?
Yeah, so at that point, if they wanted more, we are actually in the process of doing some upgraded packages, one that would be an hour per month and one that would be 2 hours per month. We haven't figured out exact prices on those. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's completely dependent on your business. Some may need more than that. And we're going to look to fill the needs of that. If someone needs 2 hours per month, we want to be able to provide that for them.
And then you can work with people across the country?
Yeah, actually I'm in Denver, Colorado, and only one of my clients is currently in Denver, Colorado. So we're kind of all over the place.
That's really cool. In all seriousness, I don't know of another accountant that's offering these kind of services in the way that you're doing it. So I think you're really onto something. And I really appreciate your time coming on today. And I want to ask you one final question in terms of what is one thing that every small business owner should know about accounting for their business to make sure that they're doing it the right way? In other words, if you could sum up everything you said, because I think to a lot of people who don't deal with this day in and day out, there's a lot of information we've been giving to them.
Yep.
So if there's sort of the one overarching important thing that somebody can take away from this, what would that be?
I would say to educate yourself on how income and expenses work. It may sound pretty basic, but you could take, whether it's taking a quick class or reading a book, just understand the way it works and the way the categories work, and even look at like a Schedule C for a tax return. Just get the basic knowledge of it. Even if you're going to pay someone to do your bookkeeping for you and prepare your taxes for you, there's so much that you can gain by learning how it all works, just a basic overview of it.
What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you to determine if one of your packages is good for them?
Yeah, the best way would probably be to email me at cpajdb@gmail.
Okay, and then on social media?
Yep, at Josh Bauerle.
All right.
Twitter.
That sounds fantastic. So you alluded to it a little bit, but what can we look forward to from you in 2014? Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we got some new packages where we want to get out there. One we're calling the Complete Entrepreneur Starters Kit, and we're still working on what exactly is going to be in there, but it's going to be a lot of video tutorials on what you need to get started, what you need throughout the year, and just try to simplify things as much as possible for small business owners. They have enough things on their plate, and we want to make the accounting and tax as easy as possible for them.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I really love what you're doing, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with me. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to staying in touch with you, Josh.
Yeah, me too. And one thing I wanted to add, that since your show is focused on franchising, I really love the idea of franchising because it's such a middle ground. There's people who should be employees, and there's people who should be entrepreneurs, and then there's people who want to be their own boss but kind of want that system in place. And I think a franchise is perfect for that, right? You can start out, you can be your own boss, and you have that system in place. So I really think it's cool that you're helping people get going with the franchise.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying it. It's very, very cool, and it's even more cool when it's done the right way. As you know.
Yep, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. So many people get into this, as you see with any kind of business, and they just don't take the time to meet with the right people. They don't take the time to think about things. They think opportunities are here in a flash and then they're gone. And the reality is, when you're buying a business, and in particular when you're buying a franchise, you are marrying yourself to that company for 5, 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years. So unlike a non-franchise business, you can start a business and fail quickly and get out. But when you sign on the dotted line, as they say, on a franchise, you are in for many, many years. So I really appreciate you mentioning that.
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. It was a great time.
All right. Talk soon. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.